Welcome, everybody, to episode 1 of Turnbuckle Tuesdays, your soon-to-be favorite pro wrestling-related podcast. We're going to talk about pro wrestling history in the archives. We're going to talk about current events and everything from the dirt sheets from the last month. And we're going to spin a wheel and we're going to pick a topic to hear me rant on. And don't forget to wind down. What is up, everybody? This is episode 1. We're going to talk a little bit about what to expect here. Expectations are obviously low. I'm a solo content creator. I'm doing this all on my own. As you can tell, this is on my gaming channel. The Todd Father is 6. If we are successful, there very well might be a separate Twitch channel just for this podcast. So hopefully we can get there. If you want to catch this podcast and watch it again, the VOD is going to be available at youtube.com/@TurnbuckleTuesdays. If you want to catch short form content or clips from the show, make sure to check out our TikTok page, turnbuckle.tuesdays. Mod Squad is here in effect. As an aside, there will be no point redemptions, sound alerts in general, or raids because this is a podcast. We're here to talk about a topic. We're not here to party. I mean, we are here to party, but not like our shenanigans when we game. How is everybody doing tonight? All right. So the way the structure that I've pictured this to go is we're going to have a series of segments. When we get done here with our little introduction, we are going to roll into the wheel spin, and that's going to pick our topic of the day. But before we talk about our topic of the day, we are going to be talking about history. In a segment called From the Archives, we're going to be looking at history taking place in the last month. I picked the dates of May 17th to today, June 16th. We're going to talk about notable historical events that happened during that time period over the course of pro wrestling history. Then, after that, we will transition to the topic of the day. That will give me a chance to rant, rave, and maybe react to content and a topic that the mighty spin wheel will pick for us. If you catch me on my gaming streams, you will know that there is a redeem for that as well, and it is the exact same wheel. The deal with the wheel is going to be, once we talk about a topic, I'm going to be removing that topic from the spin wheel and adding a new one. Don't know what it's going to be, but it is going to be pro wrestling related, and most of the time centered deeply into pro wrestling history. Now, after that, we have probably the largest segment, and that's going to be Dirt Sheet Reports. That is all of the last month's biggest news, rumors, deaths, events, upcoming events, and anything else that has happened in the last month in the world of professional wrestling. We're going to talk about things like Clash in Italy from WWE, Noches de los Grandes, the two-night event from AAA, as well as Double or Nothing, AEW's big summer show. Now, I will also let you know we do have some review going on. I have some brief reviews of each match for each of the events. However, I am broke. Not broke. I am poor. And I cannot afford to watch all of the pay-per-views, PLEs, or any event that I want to, no matter how much I want to. So, we're not going to do full reviews. A lot of my knowledge comes from watching recaps and reading recaps in regards to those events. I did watch both nights of Noches de los Grandes. If you have not checked it out, please do. It's free over on YouTube, both English and Spanish versions. So please go check that out. It was awesome. The broken inside, poor outside. Fair. And then we're also going to talk about any upcoming events between major promotions and major indie promotions coming up over the course of the next month. And I'm going to talk about the ones that I'm excited about. And then we're going to have our wind down. Our wind down is going to be the Pro Wrestling Grid game. If you're not familiar with it, you will be soon. If you're on TikTok with any aspect of sports, you understand what the grid game is. if the grid is super easy, or if we want to just keep hanging out for a little bit, or we're not at our 90 minutes, because 90 minutes is kind of where the sweet spot where I want the podcast to hit, we will transition into a video game that I have called Eras Wrestling, where we build our own promotion and we try to expand and make an empire. AKA, try not to fuck up like Vince McMahon. But let's get to the wheel spin, shall we? So, I need to remember. There it is. All right, so this is going to pick our topic for the day. As you can see, our topics currently are the New Generation, the Attitude Era, the Ruthless Aggression Era, the Territories Era, the Golden Era, current WWE, Indies, and AEW. It will land on there. We will talk about that topic in our second segment. We'll maybe even pull up some media on YouTube and talk about that and interact with that and react. And we'll go from there. So, let's give it a spin. Did that land dead center? Did that land dead center? Are you kidding me, Wheel? We're going to spin you again. The landing dead center. What the hell? All right, Attitude Era. Just to touch on the Indies? Okay, so how about this? Chat. Why don't you guys decide? Do you want me to talk about the Attitude Era or have my views on the Indies? We have talked about the Indies and touched on the Indies a little bit, both in our short form content as well as on previous streams. But I do believe Reckless is correct that we could quite possibly be leaning towards the, if we're going with streamer picks, if we're going with the host picks, I'm going with Attitude Era. It was one of the last eras that I watched in WWF, to be completely honest. So we're going to go with the Attitude Era. But before that, we have segment number 1 from the archives. From the archives, our archives span across, well, all of the internet. We look for anything that's pro wrestling related that takes place during the month, and we attempt to make it as relevant as possible and deep dive a little bit if we need to. But most of the topics I already, kind of know enough about where I can go on and on and on about it, because if you know me, you know history's kind of my bag. So, from the archives. This month in professional wrestling history. On May 17th, 1963, Buddy Rogers loses the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, the WWF World Heavyweight Championship, to Bruno Sammartino in a match at Madison Square Garden, the hallowed holy grounds of that territory from Connecticut. Buddy Rogers was the first champion in WWF history after Toots Mott and Jess McMahon withdrew from the National Wrestling Alliance. And the reason why they withdrew from the National Wrestling Alliance was because the NWA would not allow for their World Heavyweight title, the NWA World Heavyweight title, the 10 pounds of gold, to be dropped by Lou Thesz in a match against Buddy Rogers. According to legend, Rogers was to have won the championship in a wrestling tournament in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Now, this is key because this same legend applies to WWF/WWE's Intercontinental Championship, but with Pat Patterson. This is the exact same line that they used to bring in their mid-card belt, that they used to create their primary belt. For those of you not in the know, the WWF was the pre-Vincent K. McMahon version of the World Wrestling Federation, now known as World Wrestling Entertainment. Before it was the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, it was Capital Wrestling Company, the CWC, based out of New York, founded by Jess McMahon and Toots Mont. Jess McMahon, Vincent K. McMahon's grandfather, was a wrestling and boxing promoter, and Toots Mont, one of the founders of the Gold Dust Trio, was one of the largest influencing individuals in professional wrestling in regards to style. Thanks to Toots Mont and the other members of the Gold Dust Trio, the development of the Slam Bam wrestling style became prevalent throughout professional wrestling, as opposed to the traditional catch-as-catch-can wrestling that you would see with guys like Frank Gotch and Farmer Burns, and even Toots Mont was trained in. Luthez was trained in it. Quite a few wrestlers have trained in that style, especially historically speaking. But the Gold Dust Trio developed a style that was more worth watching. It wasn't just two guys grappling in the middle of a ring. They developed tag team wrestling. They developed more flamboyant-esque moves like drop kicks and some rope maneuvers, things that would catch and hold the attention of the audience, or work the audience. The loss by Rogers to Bruno Sammartino established Sammartino as the de facto face of the WWF and the primary heroic figure within the promotion. This first win by Bruno Sammartino kickstarted a legendary record-setting reign of 4,040 days with the title, eventually losing it on January 18th, 1971 in a match with Ivan Koloff. The same venue he had won the belt in 7.5 years before, the Madison Square Garden. And I cannot wait until we get to talk about that moment in history, because there was almost a riot in New York when Bruno dropped the belt. On May 27th, 1996. Now, we are doing this by order of date, not necessarily by year. Scott Hall, the bad guy, formerly known as Razor Ramon in the WWF, interrupts a live WCW Monday Night Nitro broadcast, cutting a promo in the middle of the ring after crossing over the barricade from the fan section. Hall called for Nacho Man, the Huckster, and Billionaire Ted, referencing sketches on WWF TV that lampoon the stars and financial backers of WCW. This interruption of a live broadcast would be the start of one of the hottest storylines of the mid to late 90s, and historically one of the best storylines in all of professional wrestling history, and we have seen it used time and time again, maybe without some of the angles. This culminated into the appearance of Kevin Nash, the former WWF Diesel, and the formation of the New World Order, adding in a heel-turned Hulk Hogan at Bash to the Beach in 1996. This was a very pivotal moment, not just for professional wrestling, but for TV in general. It semi-acknowledged the Monday Night Wars. It kick-started a whole new faction that had the business on fire. And it semi-acknowledged the WWF from its competitor. Now, if you know any of the history, Scott Hall is no longer with us. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. His son, Cody, wrestles. He was in New Japan. I believe he's in Noah now. He was a member of the Bullet Club, which, like I said, there have been many reiterations of the NWO, some using the name. There was NWO 2000. There was the NWO run in the WWE long after the shutdown of WCW in 2000, after the invasion. You had the Bullet Club, which was in itself kind of a mix of Degeneration X from WWF and the NWO from WCW. You currently, in my opinion, have the Bloodline, Judgment Day, the Death Riders, all of these large-scale factions that are quote-unquote violent, that are primary storylines in TV wrestling right now. Aces and Eights from TNA. They all have some aspect of DNA of the NWO storyline in it. Now, if you're not super familiar with the NWO or the storylines behind it, or if you believe the NWO was 100% an original idea conceived by Eric Bischoff, I need to remind you, Eric Bischoff was a student of the game. Bischoff spent time watching product from across the planet. That's how he knew to get a hold of AAA and bring in Psychosis and Rey Mysterio and Conan. But it wasn't just Mexican wrestling he was watching. He also watched a lot of Japanese wrestling. All Japan, New Japan, Noah. Because of that, there was a very similar storyline earlier on in the 90s that was very similar to the NWO. And he took it. No one owns it, right? Change everything, change one thing here, spray paint something there. Work yourself into a shoot brother here and there. Next thing you know, you have the hottest TV show on Monday nights since I don't know when. Further on June 6, 1982, Vincent K. McMahon, son of Northeast promoter Vincent J. McMahon, officially purchases the Capital Wrestling Corporation from his father. Under his own company, Titan Sports, Vincent K. McMahon establishes the rebranding of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation to the World Wrestling Federation, or the WWF. This purchase and rebranding, coupled with Vince's desire to completely leave the NWA and territory system as a whole, is the nexus point for the rise of one of the largest companies in professional wrestling. The WWF, through partnerships with brands, the use of televised programming in and outside of the Northeast, and a readiness to embrace the upcoming pay-per-view model, helped establish the WWF and later WWE as a sports entertainment giant across the world. Vince McMahon changed the industry. I don't care if you like the man. I know, I don't. He changed the industry. He took chances. He almost failed multiple times. He almost bankrupted the company multiple times. But he did change the industry. He changed how wrestling was consumed by the consumer. He changed how wrestling was promoted by the promoters. He changed how wrestling was viewed on TV. And then they created the pay-per-view race. Then he took the company public and became a billionaire. Now his wife's in charge of the Department of Education, and the company got sold to TKO and is partnered with UFC, and we are going to talk more about that sometime. Now, remember when I said earlier when we were talking about Buddy Rogers being the WWF heavyweight champion, right? And how Toots Mont and Jess McMahon, I should probably do this. Jess McMahon broke away from NWA in 63? Yeah, 1963. When Jess McMahon passed away, Toots Mont partnered with Vincent J. McMahon, Jess's son. Vincent J. McMahon bought out Toots because it was super easy to do, because Toots had demons. Toots had problems. Toots had addictions. He was a drunk. He was a womanizer. He was a cheater. He had gambling debts. I don't even know how much. And back in the 60s, probably to some not so good people. So Vincent J. McMahon bought the company as a whole from Toots and operated it until he sold it to his son in 1982. During that time, he reconciled with the NWA, and Vincent J. McMahon sat on the board of the National Wrestling Alliance for decades. He was a voting member. His territory was an important territory because it controlled an entire section of the country. He obviously did good work. He was never president, but he was president he did work under some of the longest running presidents in NWA history. Vince saw the territory model for what it was and continually grasped for control as territories were being operated. You had multiple territories being operated by Jim Crockett Promotions. They were at Mid-Atlantic, Georgia South, Mid-Georgia, Florida Championship Wrestling, and they were expanding. You had the AWA had already left at that point, and Vern Gagne was running a quote-unquote outlaw company up in Minnesota. So he was already doing what Vince wanted to do. NWA California was starting to fall apart. NWA Kansas City was not looking the greatest either. Vince saw that, because they were already branching off into cable with their TV shows, that the reach of the territories, where it was your travel shows that determined how far you went and how far your reach was not necessarily the reach of the future, not necessarily the future of wrestling, and that cable was. And in using television and using cable, you could reach significantly larger audiences. So, it was like in 1983, Vince left the NWA. His dad, though he did not have any ownership in the WWF anymore, was still a board member of the NWA at the time, and Vincent J. McMahon stepped down, left the NWA as well. As well as a few other notable individuals. That is something that I really cannot wait to dive into and talk about. That might be a video series that we talk about. I know the Golden Era video series done by Cultaholic talks about the episode 1 talks about this really, really well. So if you want to check out anything, check that out. And then finally, the last bit of from the archives. June 13th, 1993, the inaugural King of the Ring pay-per-view is established. If you currently watch the WWE product, you will know that we are in the middle of the King of the Ring right now. We are going into the semifinals for both the men's and the women's Queen of the Ring. But back in the day, it was a first, before it was even a pay-per-view or on TV, it was a house show tournament. It was a house show tournament used to draw in fans because it was a tournament, and it did what it was supposed to. By 1993, it became the 5th of the Big 5 at the time for the original pay-per-views that WWF offered. Inaugural King of the Ring was set as a pay-per-view on June 13th, 1993, and is often touted as the 5th in the Big 5 pay-per-view offerings by the WWF. The King of the Ring had been done in various tournament-style formats and was originally established in 1985, often with the tournament matches set for WWF syndicated television shows, or in the case of the earlier tournaments, like I said, at house shows to boost attendance. The 1993 version of the tournament was the first to be on pay-per-view, taking place at the Nutter Center in Dayton, Ohio. Bret the Hitman Hart won the tournament, defeating Bam Bam Bigelow in the finals to take the crown. That was not the main event, though, which, as a Bret Hart guy and huge Bret Hart wrestling fan, it's really hard to believe that Bret Hart was not the main event in any pay-per-view that he was in. The main event that night was Hulk Hogan, the, at the time, WWF Heavyweight Champion, facing off against Yokozuna, previous champion that he had taken the belt off of, who had taken the Heavyweight Championship from Bret Hart in the previous SummerSlam. Hogan would lose the endeavor, dropping the belt to Yokozuna, marking Hogan's last televised WWF match for nearly a decade. Later that year, he signed with WCW on a much larger contract with less dates and significantly more money. And then 6 years down the line, he's the third man at Bash at the Beach and becomes the quote-unquote leader of the NWO. Well, that was from the archives. So, our next topic is the Attitude Era. So, I'm going to pull up, or I'm going to do some quick research and talk to you guys while I do it. The Attitude Era was kind of the era that was in response to the Monday Night Wars. No one really knows or puts a time on when it started. There's a few things that you could argue that are part of the Attitude Era. The era before it was the New Generation. It was the first post-steroid era. You had young stars like Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart acting as faces of the company. You had people, you had wrestlers like Yokozuna who had just come up and who had been in the company, and you had a few other things going on. Diesel was in the company at the time, so was Razor Ramon, and they were all new generation guys. What we do know is the branding for the Attitude Era, which is right here. The scrawled WWF with Attitude and here, which later kind of became the modern day inspiration and throughout the years of the WWF, the standardized version of the logo, right? They solidified it, blah, blah, blah. So we know that this logo was first used in the 1997 Survivor Series, number 4 of the Big 4 pay-per-views. And we know that that logo was no longer used starting May 6, 2002. So at the very least, it's 4.5 years long. The highlights of the Attitude Era: violence, profanity, sexual content, and a lot more gray area for the wrestlers than the traditional heel and face distinctions for the professional wrestlers of the time. We saw the rise of Stone Cold Steve Austin, the rattlesnake, who would often drift between good guy and bad guy. Bret Hart was a good guy in Canada, but he was booed here in the United States. The formation of the Generation X, Hunter Hearst Helmsley and Shawn Michaels at first, then adding in China and Rick Rude. This era helped catapult WWF back into the spotlight, and at least could challenge Nitro during the NWO storyline. I firmly believe the start of the Attitude Era was the Survivor, I think it was the 96 Survivor Series. We'll just click here, see if I can go to the 96 Survivor Series. The 1996 Survivor Series, because that's when the screw job happened. If I remember correctly. The War Games. Not a big fan of modern Survivor Series. They are talking about dropping it, which, I mean, nostalgically, New York City, Landover, Montreal. No, it was this one, 97. Okay, cool. So, we saw the new logo during this Survivor Series. This is also when the Montreal Screwjob happens, when Bret Hart gets screwed over by Vince McMahon and Shawn Michaels on his way out the door to WCW. I have a conspiracy theory on that we can get into later. With Bret Hart gone, and the continual shifting towards gray with both your heel and your face characters, and the less cartoony aspects of professional wrestling, a whole new product was devised. You had a lot more influences from companies like, in my opinion, Extreme Championship Wrestling. In fact, Heyman has flat out said that. Yeah, I talked to Vince throughout the whole thing. The Attitude Era was just a little bit more sanitized version of what ECW is doing over in Philadelphia. You saw the rise of Mankind. You saw The Undertaker become extremely hostile, but also really, really holding the company together. Austin the Rattlesnake was, Stone Cold was Stone Cold. Shawn Michaels, especially with the Generation X, was a cheered bad guy because everybody likes a little puff and porn, I guess. Psycho Sid was a part of it, though Sid Udy didn't really stick around long enough in any company, in my opinion. Kurt Angle's debut happened during the Attitude Era, as did The Rock's. And then you saw WCW stars like Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Perry Saturn, Dean Malenko, the man of 1,000 holds, Dean Malenko, as well as Paul White, known as The Big Show, or the Giant in WCW, come over to WWF. The first guaranteed contracts were given during this era, or at least a little bit before. And a lot more attention was put on the women of the WWF. Now, for whatever reason, I don't think Vince liked women wrestlers. Amazing female wrestlers like Luna Vachon and Sherry were more or less in the 90s just given the role of manager or valet. The WWF in the 80s did have a women's division led by Wendy Richter. Almost all of the girls came from coaching from the Fabulous Moolah. They had a title. In fact, one of the title was on Alexa Blaze until she defected to WCW with the title belt because they just canceled the division and dumped it in the trash. You had them partner with New Japan or All Japan to bring women in to wrestle. But it wasn't what it is now in any capacity. A lot of the women that were brought in because they were good-looking women. There was such an aspect of misogyny and sexism, but they were brought in panty matches and sexually provocative gimmicks, lingerie matches. They were there to be the eye candy, and these included, women like Stacy Keibler, Sable, Sunny. There were women who actually took the job seriously and were gifted athletes and wanted to be and were trained professional wrestlers. Chyna, Lita, Trish Stratus, they are what became first the Divas division and then now the women's division. They are the true progenitors of the women's division in the WWF. But I remember more of the trash TV concepts than I do any of the women's matches, outside of when Chyna beat Jeff Jarrett for the Intercontinental title, or when she joined in the men's Royal Rumble, things like that. And that's just, Chyna herself was just a specimen of just insanity, in my opinion. I still think Luna Vachon was a better wrestler, as was Sherry Martel. One of the key things that happened during this time, though, was the resurgence of tag team wrestling for the WWF. The Dudley Boys came over from ECW. The Hardy Boys inked their deals again and became Team Extreme with Lita, and became one of the most highly energetic and most watched tag teams in the world. They are still going, by the way. And Edge and Christian were, they moved on from Gangrel and the Brood and became their own tag team and are also still going. You saw the foundation of a lot of factions during the era, though. Previously mentioned Degeneration X. Multiple iterations throughout the era of that. But it primarily started with Triple H and Shawn Michaels, and then taking the Clique and forming a large group. And then you have the Nation of Domination, which was headed by Ron Simmons, at the time known as Farouk, that Savio Vega, The Godfather, The Rock, Owen Hart, Mark Henry. So they're actually, athlete-wise, one of the most solid factions of all time. The Corporation, which was headed by, Vince. Because during this time, after the Montreal Screwjob, the character of evil corporate Vince McMahon. I don't think it was a character. Became a thing on WWF TV. The corporation would manipulate everything into Vince's favor. Vince would wrestle. He had cronies who were Pat Patterson, the Briscoe brothers, not Mark and Jay, not Mark and Jay Briscoe. No. The actual Briscoe brothers, and a few others. And they were the controlling. It was the boardroom in the wrestling match. The Ministry of Darkness, which was the Undertaker's faction. It was a very dark, very gothic, very metal aspect. It was the hot topic version of Raven's Flock from ECW. It was the group of weird kids who like to wear goth makeup. Now, admittedly, being friends with kids like that in high school, okay, I got it, and I completely attached to that kind of group. But if you go back and watch some of that stuff, but the ministry was also under the manipulation of Vince McMahon and formed the corporate ministry. It's not a phase, Mom. Yeah. And then you had the Brood, which was Gangrel with Edge and Christian. And they became part of the ministry. Because, God, just factions at this time period just grew and grew and grew and grew. They were vampires. Where's Blade when you need him? One of the other more notable things during this era was the establishment of the hardcore division within the WWF. This took place in 1998. It was a bunch of no disqualifications, false count anywhere matches, weapons could be used, and the Master of Hardcore himself, or at least the WWF's Master of Hardcore, Mick Foley as Mankind, kind of ran the show until Hardcore Holly got involved. But that was during the New Generation, or not during the New Generation. That was later on in the Attitude Era, leading into Ruthless Aggression. Some of the establishment of the Attitude Era rests on Terry by God Funk. Terry Funk, who was more of a producer and a road agent for the WWF at the time than he was an actual wrestler. Terry Funk is the godfather of the Japanese Death Match and the Texas Death Match, which he also got from the Bare Knuckle Championship, initially established by Wild Bull Curry out of one of the Texas territories. But Terry Funk did help elevate it, but his elevation of it happened in Japan and in ECW. Terry Funk did wrestle during the Attitude Era. He did. Not a lot. But he did tag with Mick Foley. But a lot of what Terry did was more behind the scenes stuff. He was more of a player's coach. Yes, watching him and Foley in WWE was nuts. So the establishment of the Attitude Era was kind of in response to the failures of Vince's past. The mid-1990s were kind of wrought with issues for Mr. McMahon. At the time, even, he had his wife, Linda McMahon, in charge of the company as CEO. It was a puppet controlling, but she was the head of the front office. Now, Vince looked like he was going to be going away for time leading into 1996. He was going to do some hard time. There's really strong possibility that Vince McMahon was possibly going to go away for steroids, not as personal use, trafficking. So that's why all of that happened. Jerry Jarrett was even set up to possibly take over the company, which would have been wild. I don't know if it would have killed the WWE, but it would have changed everything about it. And there is a timeline where it just became whatever Memphis and TNA was under Jerry Jarrett. Now, Vince had help creating the Attitude Era, specifically from everyone's favorite scumbag, Vince Russo. Now, Vince brought Vince Russo in. He was a member of the creative team. He was originally an editor and writer for the WWF magazine, but they brought him in to write car crash wrestling, pretty much. Things people are not going to stop watching. And they just got nuts with the booking. They as far as booking for Generation X and older current millennials, they booked perfectly. They absolutely booked perfectly. But God, was it wild. There will be a part 2 to this. Or a video where we talk about my thoughts on the Attitude Era. But we do need to move on. I've been rambling for too much. Because we got a lot of work to get through, and we got to get through some of these modern wrestling stuff. Anybody watch any of the pay-per-views, PLEs, or anything else in the last month? You had, as far as the bigs go, you had Double or Nothing, you had Noches de los Grandes as a 2-night event, and you had Clash in Italy, right? But now we're going to... Oh, why is that? That should not be like that. Oh, that's a mess. Oh, because I edited it. That's why. There we go. Welcome to the Dirt Sheet Reports, everybody. First up, this month's news. All right. News from around the world of professional wrestling. May 20th, WWE star Ludwig Kaiser was arrested in Miami, Florida, on battery charges stemming from an altercation with another man in an elevator with his girlfriend. Ludwig's girlfriend, not the guy's girlfriend. There are conflicting details surrounding what was said between Kaiser and the alleged victim. Those details specifically are, according to reports, allegedly, the victim told Kaiser he better have some fucking respect or he's going to call ICE on Kaiser's girlfriend, who is the announcer for AAA and is a Mexican national. And then Kaiser beat the shit out of him. If that's the case, good on Ludwig Kaiser. If that's a fabrication in order to gain him better favor, no bueno. I don't like that. Kaiser was held on a $1,000 cash bail that was posted by fellow WWE star Gunther, and Kaiser's legal team was able to work a deal in order to get him clearance and approvals to return to work, which included permissions to return to Mexico for Noches de los Grandes later in May. Also on May 20th, AEW Women's TBS champion Willow Nightingale relinquished her championship due to injury. The title is currently vacant and will be filled by the winner of the Survival of the Fittest match, a tournament-styled last woman standing match brought into AEW from ROH by Tony Khan on the July 1st Dynamite. May 26th, Nicola Glenn Cross, best known as Nikki Cross in WWE, and Damian Mackel, best known as Killian Dane in WWE, purchased both Progress Wrestling and independent wrestling promotion in the UK, and Defy Wrestling, a US-based independent wrestling promotion out of Seattle or Portland or the Northwest, which saves both of these indie promotions. And in my opinion, without proper indie promotions, wrestling itself will falter. May 27th, Bushiroad transfers all shares of New Japan Pro Wrestling to the consortium of Cyber Agent and TV Asahi. The promotion was previously a subsidiary of the consolidation since 2012. Cyber Agent now owns 4 of the largest professional wrestling promotions in Japan, having previously acquired DDT Pro Wrestling, Pro Wrestling Noah, and Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling in the recent past. Sounds like Cyber Agent is slowly becoming TKO over in Japan, and a monopoly is brewing. We have a series of releases from TNA. We're going to jump time a little bit with this one, so bear with me, folks. On June 7th, TNA announced that they have released both Steve Maclin and Myla Grace. Maclin, a former TNA World Champion, appears to have requested his release over the course of the preceding weeks, and Grace seems to have also requested her release in the recent past. They are not very happy with their booking, it appears. Earlier today, June 16th, Tessa Blanchard has asked for her release from TNA, as reported by Fightful Select, and TNA granted said request. Tessa is the daughter of Tully Blanchard, original Four Horsemen member. The problematic former TNA World Champion, yes, she held the World Heavyweight Championship of TNA, the only woman to ever do so. It's impressive. It is impressive. Had returned to TNA in late 2024 after being fired in 2020 after accusations of racist behaviors were being reported. It is speculated some of this is due to issues with TNA wanting talent to cancel booking with Mexican-based promotion CMLL due to TNA's relationship with WWE, which owns CMLL's rival, AAA. CMLL does a lot of co-booking with AEW. So, of course, WWE is going to have a problem with that. Blanchard appears to be the only talent in the TNA roster with upcoming bookings on CMLL, a promotion that she has had massive amounts of success in. And her partner, Esfinge, is a wrestler as well for CMLL. So she was not willing to cancel her bookings, and I don't blame her, really. They're like, no, that's not good. So they came to an agreement that she would be released. All right. Earlier this month, June 10th. Button, do what I tell you. Multiple sources are reporting that the arbitration between AEW and current TNA wrestler Ryan Nemeth have stalled. It appears that AEW is blaming Nemeth for dragging his feet in regards to the arbitration. The arbitration comes after Nemeth dropped a lawsuit he had filed against AEW, Tony Khan, and CM Punk in 2025 for breach of contract, assault, and breach of acting in good faith. AEW also appears to be requesting the sealing of certain documents and discovery that they consider proprietary for various reasons for information held in regards to both Ryan and his brother Nick Nemeth, formerly known as Dolph Ziggler for WWE, who currently wrestles for TNA as well. June 12th, multiple sources are reporting that WWE Women's Champion Rhea Ripley is currently out of action indefinitely due to a knee injury sustained during her match with Jade Cargill at Clash in Italy. No timetable for Ripley's return has been established. Rhea, get healthy. Come back when you're healthy. Come back when you're ready. Also on June 12th, June 12th was a big news day. According to Ishan Sharma of Fightful Select, TNA is reporting to have major key contract signings coming up in the near future. With their Keystone event, Slammiversary, in the upcoming month, this comes as some talents such as Steve Maclin and Maya Grace and Tulsi Blanchard have requested their releases. With Slammiversary set to take place on June 28th and matches being added to the show still, this can impact the show's card significantly depending on who is revealed to be signed by TNA. I have not seen any rumors as to who's been signed yet. I'm sure things will break probably later this week. June 13th, The New York Knicks have won their first NBA Finals in 53 years. This comes as an interesting news in the professional wrestling world, being as WWE's Danhausen has been actively counteracting the curse of the Knicks in and out of storyline via social media. Danhausen had attended the Knicks versus Spurs Game 3 matchup at the Madison Square Garden previously in the series and has been featured on sports talk shows on ESPN throughout the conference finals and the finals. There's even crossover merch between the Knicks and Danhausen being produced by the WWE. Very good. Very evil. All right. And oh wait. Recent deaths in professional wrestling. Ted Turner died on May 6, 2026. He was 87 years old. He was a media magnate that founded CNN, TBS, TNT, and Turner Classic Movies. Turner was also the former owner of the Atlanta Braves as well as World Championship Wrestling. With his buying of Jim Crocker Promotions and the financial support he was able to give, WCW was able to push into the number 2 spot in the early 1990s for televised professional wrestling, soon taking the number 1. With help of WCW president Eric Bischoff and the NWO storyline, Turner's WCW was able to overtake the WWF in the ratings for nearly 2 years. Bill Hickerson passed away on May 20th at the age of 79. Hickerson was best known for his stints in both NWA Mid-America and the Continental Wrestling Association promotions, both hailing from Tennessee. Hickerson's career lasted from his debut in 1974 until his retirement in 1991. In 1995, Hickerson was inducted into the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame. On May 25th, 2026, Jerry Gray passed away at the age of 62. Debuting in 1981 and retiring in 2009, Gray wrestled for many of the southern territories of the NWA. These included Mid-South Wrestling, Championship Wrestling from Florida, Jim Crocker Promotions, and Memphis Wrestling. Throughout his career, Jerry Gray was a mainstay in the grittier, more realistic southern style of professional wrestling that later became established with WCW. On June 5th, 2026, at the age of 48 years old, the great Kasaki passed away. Kasaki was a beloved professional wrestler in his home nation of Canada. Through his tireless work and charm, Kasaki helped establish the foundations for the British Columbia independent wrestling scene. He will be missed. Oh, events. Events. We note to the audience, I have not watched most of the following events since watching most pay-per-view offerings is expensive and time-consuming. I'm not going to do full reviews of each event, but hit high points and major matches and discuss the aftermath of some of the storylines. If you'd like deeper reviews of the pay-per-views or premium live events by companies, let me know. I'm sure you can come up with something, including just a video series or even a separate podcast talking about it. There are 4 major events over the last month that I had access to. I've not dived into indie events or anything from Japan. If you'd like to see that kind of content as part of the podcast, please let me know. Our first event, AEW Double or Nothing. This took place in the Louis Armstrong Stadium in Queens, New York, with 12 matches on the card, counting the pre-show. Pay-per-view is also the official start of both the men's and women's Owen Hart Cup tournaments. Notable matches. We're not going to talk about the pre-show. The trios match, Death Riders versus the Ops, was what I would expect it to be. Two very badass groups going to war against each other. Death Riders won. The total match time was like 10 minutes and 35 seconds. So the first match I want to highlight is the New York Street Fight I Quit match, which was for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. The secondary stipulation was that Cage and Cope were not allowed to tag team ever again if they lose. The defending tag team champions were FTR, Dax Hardwood, and Cash Wheeler versus Cage and Cope, Christian Cage, and Adam Copeland. This was a nearly 20-minute match, which acted as a culmination for a long brewing rivalry between the participants who really just hated each other. So many weapons used, so many things happened. You had Stokely Hathaway, FTR's manager, get involved and then get his ass kicked by Adam Copeland's wife, Beth Phoenix. Like, it was a car crash of the greatest magnitude. Cage and Cope won with Dax Hardwood quitting in a submission. The match of the night, in my opinion, and from everybody else's opinion from what I've read, was the AEW's International Championship match, where defending champion Kazuchika Okada wrestled fellow Don Callis family member Konosuke Takeshita. Don Callis, as he will do, was the commentary. This was a very stiff match. Both these guys are from New Japan, and they both wrestle in what's known as the Japanese strong style, which is what New Japan is known for. It's what Tony set up New Japan for. A mix of legitimate martial arts mixed in with professional wrestling. Oh, watching back some of the clips of this, Jesus. There were some false pinfalls, but Takeshita did win. He won via pinfall, and we thought we were going to see a celebration with his tag team partner Kyle Fletcher, but Kyle Fletcher attacked him. You know, Kyle Fletcher's a heel. He did a heel thing, and effectively kicking Takeshita out of the Don Callis family, even though he's got the belt now. The match was 19 minutes, and if you're going to watch any match from this pay-per-view, this is the match to watch. And that's pretty much your MJF versus Darby Allin versus the hair versus the AEW World Championship match. And it's what I would expect from the two of the four pillars of AEW. MJF, Maxwell Jacob Freeman, very much a mix of Ric Flair, Macho Man, Mr. Perfect, and honestly anybody coming from that era, as well as a Southern style wrestling style, which is really weird for a kid from New York. And Darby Allin, living hardcore legend and absolute psychotic individual. The story in the ring was whether or not Darby could keep up the pace and keep up the pressure based upon he had literally spent the last 6 weeks fighting twice a week for his belt on Dynamite and Collision in an open challenge system, and if his body was just going to fail him. MJF did win, keeping his hair. He became a 3-time AEW World Champion and did not have to shave his head. After the match, Kevin Knight attacked Darby Allin by splashing Darby while Darby was in a gurney, and it just looked painful. And Kevin Knight. The critical response was overly positive across the board for the pay-per-view. However, Okada and Takeshita rated highly on everyone's rating, many concluding it as match of the night. There was a lot of praiseworthy matches, and especially when you talk about the variety of matches. You had a Stadium Stampede match, you had women's matches for placement in the Owen Hart Cup. Overall, it was a very solid pay-per-view, which is kind of what you expect with AEW anyway. In the fallout, champion Kevin Knight fully turned heel and attacked his Jet Speed tag team partner Mike Bailey after Bailey confronted him in regards to what happened at Double or Nothing. Bailey demanded Knight to apologize to Darby Allin for attacking him. Knight said no, laid him out, and later joined the heel stable of the Don Callis family, which I'm really hoping they put a nice bow on this and can explain why Kevin Knight needs to be in that faction. Because I don't get it. MJF celebrated his win on Dynamite, but was confronted by Mark Briscoe. Briscoe demanded a match for the championship. MJF denied him, walked off, and then was confronted by Rush. Rush accused MJF pretty much of being a coward and not a fighting champion, demanding his own shot, which was a match that would happen on June 3rd on Dynamite. MJF won that match, retained his title. However, did legitimately hurt his knee. So, Max, I hope you're doing okay. I know you're probably not seeing this, but I hope you're doing okay. I don't like to see anybody get hurt. And it's outside of that, on the first collision after Double or Nothing, Don Callis announced that Kyle Fletcher has been cleared for us. So Fletcher has been out for a few months since losing the Continental title? No, something like that. He lost whatever belt he had because there's like 6 mid-card belts. And because of that, he's been out because he's been injured. Now that he's back, he wants to challenge Takeshita for the International Championship, and Takeshita agreed, though there is no set date for the future. The next event, Night 1 of Noches de los Grandes. This took place on May 30th, and it took place at Arena Monterrey in Monterrey, Nuevo León, Mexico. This was, I believe it was a singular show, but I'm not 100% certain. It was billed as a 2-night event between March 30th and June 6th, with the first event kind of being the larger of the two. There were some great matches. Watch this if you get a chance. Search it on YouTube. Watch the whole thing. It is fantastic. Matches that I think that most of you will enjoy would be for me, the singles match for the AAA World Cruiserweight title. Laredo Kid versus Ray Phoenix. Ray Phoenix won that via pinfall after a Mexican Buster. Really lots of high flying. If you like the high flying luchador action, this is the match that you want to see. Same thing with the Latin American Championship match with champion El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. versus El Hijo de Vikingo. Just an amazing match as far as good versus evil goes, and it's all high flying, really. Really fun match was the World Tag Team Championship match where the Psycho Circus, Psycho Clown, and Pagano, who were the defending champions, versus WWE's War Raiders of Ivar and Eric. The War Raiders did win. It was very much a Styles clash, though Pagano and Psycho Clown, who have been around for a while in AAA, it was a good match for them. They didn't have to do a lot. They wrestle a much slower pace. They don't wrestle with near the amount of aerials and high-paced action that their other AAA members do. It was a very good story match. But the main event is what you need to see, and that was the Mascara contra Mascara match. Also, it was a no disqualifications lucha de apuestas, Mascara contra Mascara, which means it was mask versus mask for El Grande Americano versus the El Original El Grande Americano. This match was a solid mix of lucha libre, American wrestling, and European catch. It highlighted the best of all of the styles, as well as just the story of triumph of a hero over his rival and villain. This match was amazing. It literally drove me to tears. The storytelling in this match this should be a match of the year candidate for any critic and any wrestling fan across the board. El Grande Americano won via pinfall after a diving headbutt. The original makes good on the mascara stipulation, removing his mask after and exposing himself to be Chad Gable of the WWE. No one knew that! The match was a 33-minute, just exquisite match. Watch it. The event as a whole was very positively reviewed by critics. And as I said, mascara contra mascara match between the Dos Grandes Americanos. Very, very much a match of the year candidate for many publications. Chad Gable has since returned to WWE and has gone on an apology tour of sorts. He's getting turned face. He's been meeting with luchador superstars for the WWE, Rey Fenix, Dragon Lee, Pentagon, Rey Mysterio, and apologizing for the harm and the disrespect to Lucha Libre and the culture. The really cool continuation of the storyline going into the WWE now, which is awesome. Then we have Clash in Italy. I don't know if you watched this. It just feels like the same matches. WWE pay-per-views just feel like the same matches over and over again. You have the undisputed WWE Championship singles match between defending champion Cody Rhodes and Gunther. Gunther is very much a heavy-handed foreign heel wrestler. Just heel wrestler. We don't even need to do foreign. He's a ring general. He beats the crap out of you. And Cody has more flash. Cody wins via pinfall after executing a Cody Cutter and a Crossroads, retaining the title. However, immediately after the match, the win was contested by Gunther, claiming that his foot was under the ropes, breaking the pinfall per rules. This was later confirmed on air by the broadcast team, and that is why the rematch has been set up for the upcoming pay-per-view. We'll talk about that in a bit. As previously noted, you had defending champion Rhea Ripley versus Jade Cargill. Decent match for both. I have my own opinions of Jade Cargill. I think she's an amazing person. I think she's a very talented athlete. I think working with Rhea is probably one of the best options because Rhea can pull a lot out of Jade in regards to a match, which is great. I want Jade to get better. And I think Jade has the capabilities to be one of the best women's wrestlers in professional wrestling. I just want her to develop more. Rhea won after a series of riptides to Cargill. Brock Lesnar versus Obafemi was kind of a squash of Obafemi, which set them up for their next meeting, possibly after King of the Ring. Who knows? Then the women's IC match, you had Becky Lynch versus Sol Ruca. Sol Ruca, who was a recent call up from NXT, takes the belt off of Becky Lynn after a Soul Snatcher. Match took about 15 minutes. This is a good spot for Becky, in my opinion, in the upper mid card. She's able to go anywhere, to go up into the main event if she's needed, but she's also able to act a lot more as a player coach and get over these younger talents. We saw it with Lyra. We're seeing it with Soul, and then her matches with AJ Lee were just fantastic as well. The main event was a tribal combat match for the World Heavyweight Championship, held by Roman Reigns and the position of tribal chief for the Noai family. This was Roman versus Jacob Fatu. I'm very impressed that there was no interference by other members of their family. Very much two super heavyweights going after each other. Roman ends up retaining and keeps his place as head of the table. Overall, critics were generally positive about the event. They were pleased with the offering, even though it did not meet some of their higher expectations. If you watched WrestleMania and Backlash, Backlash was really good. Backlash is what WrestleMania was supposed to be, in my opinion. But I don't know how higher expectations should be with current WWE products, in my opinion. There wasn't a whole lot of post storylines for Clash. The only real direct storyline was Cody versus Gunther with a contested finish. Gunther has made claims of Cody cheating to retain his title, and there is going to be a match set up. It's not going to be for the pay per view. I believe it is. Yes, the match is Saturday or Friday on SmackDown with Sami Zayn as special guest referee because, of course, he is. Jacob Fatu officially acknowledged Roman Reigns as the tribal chief, joining the current iteration of the bloodline with Jimmy and Jey Uso, his cousins. With Jey set to wrestle through the King of the Ring tournament, hoping to win and challenge for the Undisputed Championship currently held by Cody Rhodes, so that they can just start their bloodline, belt collecting as they do. There's obvious tension between Jacob and his cousins. We're seeing this time and time again anytime they're on screen together. Is it possible the new bloodline will fracture into another family feud? Quite possible. All right. Finally, we have Noches de los Grandes Night 2, which also took place at the Arena Monterrey. The fatal five-way match to determine the number one contender to AAA Cruiserweight Championship was nuts. You had Lince Dorado, Cruz del Toro from the LWO, Joaquin Wilde from the LWO, Mini Vikingo, and Octagon Jr. This match was great. The way it was constructed was great. Whoever did the producing for this match did a fantastic job. There are plenty of high spots for each wrestler in combination with all of the other four. It was a great five-way match. These things can get very, very chaotic, but it was done very professionally. Everyone got high spots. Everyone got acknowledged doing what they do, and it was a fantastic match. It is honestly probably one of the matches, if someone's not very familiar with the modern luchador style, or the style that's been established by AAA going back to the late 80s and early 90s, this would be the first match I would have them watch. It is very much an educational match to get into lucha libre high-flying action. It reminded me a lot of watching Psychosis and Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero and Juventud Guerrero when they were in WCW. It was so good. And La Parca. It was so good. Lince Dorado won via pinfall of Joaquin Wilde after executing a brainbuster and then a shooting star press, which was just fucking wild. He is now the number one contender for the World Cruiserweight Championship, currently held by El Hijo de Vikingo. The mid-show, there was some promos cut, and there was a lot of just promoting at the upcoming Triple Mania, which is in the future. And also promoting WWE coming WWE's Latin America tour that is upcoming as well. Rey Mysterio has been set up as the general manager for AAA with The Undertaker, Mark Calloway, as the primary booker and creative for AAA, and they are doing fantastic. They are doing fantastic things. I don't know if it would translate over to SmackDown or Raw, but AAA very well could carry the WWE through a few things right now. The main event was a Lucha de Relevos Australianos, which is an Australian relay 6-person match. It's 3-person tag. Bailey from the WWE, La Catalina from AAA, and Lola Vice, who is both AAA and NXT, versus Las Taxicas, Flamor, La Hydra, and Maravilla. With Bailey and Lola Vice backing her up, the story centers more around La Catalina's history with La Taxicas as she looks to battle Lady Flamor in the future for the Reina de Reinas Championship, one of the women's belts. And this is what it's all setting up to be, and they did a great job setting that up. Each wrestler gets time to highlight in the match. There's a decent balance of more of a strong style move sets with traditional flying lucha action. It's a really good match. It's not quite as good, in my opinion, as the 5-man match, but it's still a good match and worth a watch. Bailey, La Catalina, and La Vice do win via pinfall, with La Catalina getting the pin after a hip attack and a running knee strike to Lady Flammer, setting up the pin. This night, the night 2 event was not as well received as the first night, which I mean, dear God, I don't know anything that could hold up to the first night from this year from any of the WWE products. A lot of, C, B minus total ratings for the shows, but not overall a net negative, so it held up okay. Aftermath wise, Dorado is set up as the number one contender and will more than likely be part of one of the two nights for Triple Mania coming in August and September. The animosity between La Catalina and Lady Flammer, it's not going to surprise me if they also have a match at Triple Mania 34. There's currently only one match that's confirmed for Triple Mania 34, and it's the AAA Mega Championship champion Dominic Mysterio versus an unknown opponent at the time. It would not surprise me to see, because especially with it being a 2-night event, every title AAA has on defense. That includes the War Raiders. The War Raiders are doing fantastic in AAA. I'm very happy to see them active. They are very good at being rudos or heels in AAA as foreign invaders. Good on you, boys. Next up, we have our rumors. We have a few that have popped off over the course of the last month. First, the WWE is interested in Zilla Fatu, guys. The WWE is interested in another Anoa'i Fatu wrestler. Now, granted, Zilla Fatu, son of the late Umaga, is an amazing wrestler. Dear fucking God, the shit that he's doing for MLW, GCW, and the Indies is amazing. Apparently, he was at the Performance Center at the end of May or beginning of June, and there are unconfirmed reports of the WWE showing a very heavy interest. This is unsurprising. His debut has been one of the most, on a WWE product of some sort, has been more highly anticipated than even that of his cousin Jacob Fatu, the Samoan werewolf. Zilla is a trainee of WWE Hall of Famer Booker T and has wrestled the last 4 years in almost every independent promotion, every major independent promotion across the country, and he has paved his own way to professional wrestling stardom. Arguably, he doesn't need to be on a major show, but dear God, the kid should be. As of May 29th, it's being reported by Mongo at TNA, or at It's Mongo on TikTok, that TNA X Division champion Leon Knight has been barred from breaking the record-setting run of holding the championship pot previously held by Austin Aries set in 2011 to 2012 for 301 days. This rumor comes with speculation that Leon Knight's contract with TNA is near its end, and he could very well sign with either WWE or AEW in the very near future. As of June 9th, TikToker Ango PW on TikTok, it was reported rumors that AEW might be seeking a distribution deal with Fox. With some potential issues with the merger between Paramount and Warner Brothers Discovery, AEW could be looking for a new long-term home for their TV productions of Dynamite and Collision. It was rumored a while ago that AEW was in negotiations with Fox, but nothing came out of those rumors. There's no deal set in stone, and a lot of this is just speculation. Fox has experience running wrestling programming, having been the home for WWE SmackDown in recent history, but it appears that Fox is not interested in returning to TKO WWE Productions. Having AEW on Fox programming, whether it's on Fox as a free weekly show or on Fox Sports 1 on cable, would build a solid platform for AEW shows like Dynamite and Collision, as well as making more professional wrestling accessible for fans, making the move overall positive for professional wrestling as a whole. That is a net positive for fans of professional wrestling. Again, more on June 12th, just like the news. TikToker Richie Mars, retold Richie Mars, is reporting that there is a possibility of CM Punk at least burying the hatchet with All Elite Wrestling. Punk has been off of WWE TV since Raw after Backlash, reportedly taking some much-needed time off to take a break from the business. To my knowledge, Punk is still under contract with the WWE and TKO, and we should be expecting him to return shortly I suspect around the build-up for SummerSlam. Now, Punk wrestled for AEW from 2021 to 2023, leaving on bad terms due to issues with members of the locker room, which led to his return to WWE. In regards to burying the hatchet, unnamed sources say never. Jungle Jack Perry responded via an illustration on Instagram of a burning bridge on his Instagram account, reportedly in response to these rumors. It was also reported on June 12th by Julian D'Alessandro of WrestlingInc.com that Punk's return to TV could be on SmackDown as opposed to Raw, which would set him up with Cody, with a match versus Cody possibly for the Undisputed Championship for next year's WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia. As of June 13th, there are rumors on TikTok, specifically from Soulman_5150, that Rikishi, father of Jimmy and Jey Uso, and Solo Sikoa could possibly be returning to WWE as part of the current iteration of the Bloodline. Nothing has been confirmed by any reputable sources, however. Speculation indicates it would be in a non-wrestling role and in a more managerial position for Rikishi. And that's everything from the dirt sheets. We have some upcoming events that we're going to talk about, and I'm going to highlight the ones that I am very much looking forward to. I'm going to have a slideshow of all of the events as I go through it. So, all right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 events left in June. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 events total for the next month before our next podcast. Are you ready? On June 19th, GCW is going to have the pay-per-view Rage Against Time. It's going to take place in Cincinnati, Ohio. Also on June 19th, CMLL and New Japan Pro Wrestling will have their Fantastica Mania Mexico event. This is a premium online event, so you're going to have to pay online to see this, taking place in Mexico City. On the 20th, GCW has the Last Ones Left pay-per-view for offer, taking place in Indianapolis, Indiana. On that same day, Stardom, the women Joshi Japanese promotion, it's all women, have their pay-per-view, The Conversion, taking place in Tokyo, Japan. I believe that's at Budokan. On the 27th of June, WWE brings you Night of Champions, their next premium live event taking place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, because it would not be a year of WWE professional wrestling without at least 2 Saudi Arabia events. GCW has events on the 27th and 28th with America's Most Wanted on the 27th in Los Angeles, California, and Life of Crime taking place in Mesa, Arizona. Both are pay-per-views. All GCW pay-per-views are available on Thriller.tv. I did take a look at that. That's a weird platform. TNA has Slammiversary on June 28th. It's their premier pay-per-view. It's the biggest show of the year for them, and it'll be interesting to see because there's so much going on with that company right now. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if next year they're going to be owned by someone else or if they're going to exist. I don't know. WWE NXT's Great American Bash takes place on the 28th as well. That's a PLE that'll be available probably for purchase on Netflix, taking place in Orlando, Florida. Also on the 28th, there are 4 major wrestling events taking place on June 28th. Dear God, I don't have the time or the money to watch all of these, but Forbidden Door, which is a mixed promotion of AEW, CMLL, and New Japan Pro Wrestling and Stardom, takes place in San Jose, California. That is going to be a killer pay-per-view. If I'm going to watch any of the pay-per-views that day, I am going to watch Forbidden Door because you get to see some combinations and some wrestling combinations that you're not going to see anywhere else or ever thought you were going to see. Moving on to July. On July 4th, GCW has Bash in the Ballpark in Brooklyn, New York. They're one of their pay-per-views. On the 5th, they have Backyard Wrestling 8, another one of their pay-per-views taking place in New Jersey. July 7th is a very special general show for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that is Tiger Mask's retirement match taking place in Tokyo, Japan. I am going to try to catch footage of that. Tiger Mask is a legend in Japanese pro wrestling, and his retirement is the end of an era. On the 11th, and New Japan Pro Wrestling has the start of their G1 Climax tournament taking place night one. This is the 36th year of the tournament, by the way. Night one, it's a general show in Hoffman Estates, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. GCW ends up this list with 2 more events. You Only Die Once on the 11th in Hartford, Connecticut, and the Melee in Manchester, New Hampshire on the 12th. GCW puts in the work. Game Changer Wrestling puts in the work, and it is, I respect the hell out of them for it. I absolutely respect the hell out of them for it. So, I made allusion, like, I alluded to this in the Discord talking about this, and I firmly believe GCW is just a bunch of psychos. I mean, they are a deathmatch company. They're Nick Gage's home company. But Game Changer Wrestling, I'm like, there's no way. I mean, I believe Shotzi's contract wrestles for him too. That doesn't say much. I love Shotzi. I love Killer Cross. And I'm glad they're doing great things in the indies, but these people scare me. It takes a lot to scare me. But GCW, when they have these back-to-back events, from what I'm assuming is they run 2 separate crews. And, like, they're going to have Zack Sabre Jr. versus Kenny Omega for Forbidden Door. Absolutely. I cannot wait. The 28th, is that... That's a Sunday. Reckless, I'm going to message you. Anyway, but GCW must run 2 separate setup crews, and then of course they're going to have stars like Shotzi and Nick Gage, and anybody other bigger stars that are going to be at some of the events, and then probably a bunch of either local talent or talent that they've curated in these cities that take place for the events. I'm not 100% certain, but that's what I'm suspecting. I'm probably wrong. I don't know. But they might be the hardest working company out there. I was really surprised I did not see a Major League Wrestling event on the list when I was looking for it. They don't have a pay-per-view coming up this month, MLW, which is kind of sad. I was really hoping to maybe catch one of Killer Cross's matches. He is by far probably my favorite wrestler right now. But who knows? And that is it for everything today, folks. We're going to kick on over to our wind down segment, which is going to be the Wrestling Grid. If you're not familiar with any of the grid-based games, we have 3 categories here. This is all WWE. I did easy for tonight. 3 categories here. So Raw Tag Team Champions, WWE Tag Team Champion. That'd be from 2024 to now. Royal Rumble winners. And then we have 3 rows, which is SmackDown Tag Team Champions. They're part of the NXT 2014 roster. And WrestleMania 41 Night 1 wrestlers. Okay, so I'm going to knock out the SmackDown and Raw Tag Team Champs with 1. And that's going to be the Usos. Oh, it's individual. So we're going to go Jimmy Uso for there. Okay. Royal Rumble winner, that was also a SmackDown Tag Team winner. That's going to be Jey Uso. Spell it right, Todd. Jey. Ooh, okay. So when it highlights like this, if you can see, like that's highlighted blue, blue, and blue, I have options. We're gonna go with the one that I initially had chosen, which is the Royal Rumble winner because he won one of the recent Royal Rumbles, and the tag team champ. Raw champion. Okay, so WWE tag team champ and a SmackDown tag team champ. Let's go Kofi. Nope. Uh, Xavier Woods. Ooh, Russell Night One, WrestleMania 41, and held the Raw tag team champs. Okay, cool. SmackDown and WWE tag team 2024. Let's go Sammy. Sami Zayn was NXT and SmackDown Tag Team Champion. Okay. What about Kevin Owens? No, no Kevin Owens. Okay. NXT 2014 and a Royal Rumble winner. So if Sammy was 2014, I believe that would also be. Did Seth Rollins win? No, but he was a Royal Rumble winner and a WrestleMania Night 1. So he was not 2015. Finn? No, not Finn Balor. Sheamus. No Sheamus. NXT 2014 is not my greatest. I was going to say Asuka, maybe? Ooh, Charlotte. Charlotte was NXT 14 and a Royal Rumble winner. Okay, so now we've got the Tag Team Champs 2024 to 2026. Would have been a Tag Team Champ that also held the SmackDown Tag Team belts. So it was pre-unification. Also held that. That also held the current WWE Miz. Nope. What about R-Truth? Nope. Shinsuke Nakamura? Nope. Oh boy, this one's tough. Hmm. Well, who else wrestled at WrestleMania 41 Night 1? This would have been. Was that this year's? No, last year's. This was 42. Cody? Nope. Also, who was in the NXT 2014 class? With Charlotte and Sammy. That would have been. KO was already up. Seth was already up. Dean was already up. Dean Ambrose didn't even wrestle in NXT. He was still Florida Championship Wrestling. Hmm. Hmm. I honestly don't know. Neville? I guess Pac. Nope. Well, be there as 20 to 10. This is tough, guys. Yeah, we're gonna give up. I want to see who the other ones are. Reveal answers. Oh, Chigafatu, Dawkins. Okay. I need to watch the product more. Oh, I need to watch the product more. But thank you, everybody, for being here. That is our time. We'll be back in a month to discuss a lot of the things that we just discussed, and we'll see how some of those events turned out. Thank you so much for being here for the very first episode. I can't wait to see you guys for episode 2. Take care of yourselves, and thanks again. Bye, everybody.